if I may make one remark about Vitthal, a cricketing remark. I was talking about my research into this extraordinary story of caste in cricket with the late Raj Singh Dungarpur, who was spiritually a Mumbaiker, though not genetically and ethnically. He was home for many years with the Cricket Club of India. And I was talking to him there, and he told me, "Oh, you found this about Vitthal?" And then Raj Singh said, his father was a great patron of cricket, Lakshman Singh of Dungarpur. He said, "My father told me that Vitthal was every bit as good a batsman as Vijay Hazare." Now Raj Singh told me has told me many times that Vijay Hazare was every bit as good a batsman as Sunil Gavaskar. And I have told my son many times that Sunil Gavaskar was every bit as good a batsman as Sachin Tendulkar. So by whatever it's called, elementary algebraic logic, Palwankar Vitthal must have been as good as Sachin Tendulkar. Now, the story of the Palwankar brothers is forgotten for several reasons. One reason is they played before official test cricket, so they aren't counted as part of the record. A second reason is the fact that we don't consider sport, we separate sport from society, whereas sport is a theatre in which the aspirations, the achievements, the prejudices, the negative aspects of society are also kind of shot through with. And a third reason, and this is a very, very interesting reason, why perhaps the story of the Palwankar brothers is forgotten, is that there is also an element of tragedy in their story, apart from their own suffering and their tribulations. And the element of tragedy is that the Palwankar brothers, and Palwankar Balu in particular, had a complicated relationship with B.R. Ambedkar, the great and acknowledged and supreme leader of the Dalit movement in 20th century India. Balu stayed with the Congress, whereas Ambedkar rejected the Congress. And in the 1937 elections to the Mumbai legislature, the Congress put up Palwankar Balu to stand against B.R. Ambedkar in a Bombay constituency. So it's quite fascinating. And Balu was a person of such dignity and self-respect that he said in his election speeches, he said, "I have the greatest respect for B.R. Ambedkar, who is a great lawyer and a scholar and has done so much for our community, but I'm a loyal soldier of the Congress, so I must stand against him." Now, that's the first exemplary name I wanted to recall as a way of paying my tribute to Comrade Chavan. The second name I want to recall had a trajectory the reverse of Palwankar Balu. She came from an extremely aristocratic upper class background. She was privileged in terms of class and also in terms of race. She was the daughter of an English admiral at the height of the British Empire. She grew up in London. She was born in 1892, just as Palwankar Balu was taking his first steps on the cricket fields of Mumbai. She was born in London, born into wealth and privilege, and like people of that background, developed an interest in Western classical music, in the works of Beethoven in particular, and became a concert quality pianist. And in the early 1920s, as I found in the course of my research, this young lady, then in her early 20s, was giving concerts that were reported in the London Times. So her passion was music and the music of Beethoven. In 1924, the French novelist Romain Rolland wrote a biography of Beethoven. And this young lady was so fascinated that she went across to France, where Romain Rolland lived, to discuss Beethoven with the novelist and biographer. And while they were having this conversation, Rolland passed on to her the proofs of his next book, which was a biography of a certain Mohandas K. Gandhi. This lady, and some of you will now have already guessed her identity. Her name then was Madeline Slade. She comes back to England, reads this book, is enchanted, and impulsively abandons Beethoven and falls in love with the idea of Gandhi. Writes to Gandhi and said she wants to devote herself and her life to the service of Gandhi and the Indian national movement. And Gandhi sensibly writes her a letter saying, first you must discard your finery and your jewellery. You must learn to eat vegetarian food. Sit on the floor, eat with your hands, keep spices and sweets and all the other kind of attractive things out of your diet. Stop going to concerts. Maybe learn to spin. And if after a year of all of this you still want to come and join me, please do so. Now the young lady perseveres and she does all this for a year and writes to Gandhi. And then she comes. She joins him in 1926, becomes an adopted daughter, takes the name Miraben, is jailed during the Salt Satyagraha movement, for a time edits Gandhi's journal Harijan. And again, a quite extraordinary story. Someone born into the height of the imperial aristocracy abandons race and nation and class to serve the Indian people and the acknowledged leader of the Indian poor. Now that's the story some of you know. But there's a part of a story which is actually largely unknown, written out of the Gandhian and the nationalist record, and hence so much more attractive to the biographer. In the early 1920s, or maybe the late teens, Madeleine Slade falls in love with Beethoven as the idea. In the 1920s, she abandons Beethoven for Gandhi, whom she adopts as a kind of father figure. In the late 1930s, when she's already in her 40s, she falls in love, so far as we know, for the first time, falls in love in the sense in which you and me understand fall in love. And the object of her affections, and this is the part of the story that is written out of the nationalist record and the Gandhian record, the object of her story was a handsome, bearded Sikh revolutionary called Prithvi Singh Azad.